let me go back and tell you what I did right. And because I'm never sure when I talk about what I would have done differently if I help people, but I know if I tell them what I did right, I help them.
Yeah.
And so let me first of all, what I did right was very simple, Sam. I determined every day to add value to people. Period. End of story. We're done. Every day I'm going to be a plus. When I come along, you, Sam, when I'm done with our interaction, you're going to look at me and say, he just added value to me. Because
Mhm.
and that's simple. And I tell people anybody can do that. So I mean, this is not complicated stuff. In all relationships, we are either a plus or a minus. That's true in marriages. That's true in business. That's true in community. We're either adding value or subtracting value from people every day. It's just that simple.
Mhm.
And so I intentionally, in the beginning, said I'm going to add value to people every day. Now, that I didn't always know how I was going to do it. I didn't always know how to do it, but I just knew I was going to add value to people, and that I was going. When I came away from a relationship with somebody, they were going to look at me and say, "I want him around me because he makes me better." So that's what I did right. It wasn't a career choice. It wasn't like I was brilliant. It was just that I was very committed to every day. And by the way, I do that. I do that now. I do that now. I mean, every day I value people, think of ways to add value to people, look for ways to add value to people, do things that add value to people, and encourage people to add value to each other every day. I still do that. I don't have to do that. I mean, if I want to, I can collect coupons. I don't have to work. I can do a lot of things. I mean, I got all the options in the world for me. But why do I do that? I do that because that's what works. And so when people come to me all the time, I mean, this is so true because I love working with young leaders. Love round tables with kids. And one of their first questions, I mean, I know them like they'll say, well, help me brand myself. I got to get it. And I'll look at it. I'll say, listen to me very carefully. Just get good. Could you get good? If you get good, any
Mhm.
brand works. Trust me, you can have the hokey dokey brand. I could care less. When you're good, hokey dokey brand works. And when you're bad, you can't have a slick enough, smart enough brand to help you. Because what eventually happens is you show up. And you either show up good and adding value to people, or you show up bad and you're taking value from people. And so that's what I did right. What I did wrong, and there, I mean, now I did what I did right in 5 minutes. What I did wrong, do you have an hour? I mean, no, I mean, and what I did wrong in the beginning is I tried to be someone else, but not myself, and
Mhm.
uh, and I looked at people that I really admired, and I thought, wow, I'll try to be like that, and I just found out within about a year and a half of starting out that it just didn't work. It just I constantly fumbled, and I think why isn't this working? Well, it wasn't working because I wasn't who I was. I was trying to be somebody that I admired, thinking I admire them. So if I'm like them, people will admire me too. And what I didn't have is authenticity. And what I've learned about leadership is people don't want a perfect leader, but they do want an authentic leader. And
Mhm.
and they want a leader, Sam, that just says, you know what, I blew that one. That's on me. I I didn't do that right. I made a bad decision there. Let's back up. Let's review this. Let's correct this as quickly as we can because I'm not taking us the right path. That's what they want, and it takes a little time and confidence and to get that, but I got there. I got there. In fact, fairly quick because I realized what I'm really good at is I'm good at reading the situation and saying I'm doing good or I'm not doing good here. And what I've always done well is when I'm not doing good is I don't stay there. I don't say, well, let's just double the effort. Let's see if I can get double bad here. I pull away and I pivot. And that's a word that we use in COVID now. And I shift and I say, okay, why didn't that work? And what do I need to change? And I've always been very willing to back out and say, hey, let's we got to do different. We got to do better.
You just wrote a book called The Leader's Greatest Return.
Yeah.
And in there, we talk about developing leaders, really the level 4 influence in the 5 levels of leadership that we talk about so often. One of the things that we see in organizations that we help all around the world is this lack of leadership bench, the lack of succession planning when it comes to leaders. Talk about the importance of developing leaders, building succession plans in organizations in order for the organizations to really be scalable and sustainable beyond the leader.
Well, the depth of an organization is based on how many players you have that can really produce. I love college football. You love college football.
Yeah.
In fact, Chris has a son that's at University of Georgia. Is a tight end, an incredible football player. You know the difference between University of Georgia football and a small college football is the depth.
Mm.
If you go to the second team, you go all the way down the line, all of those players, they're good players. In fact, when they move players in and out, it really doesn't make much of a difference in the game because there's a depth, there's a quality there. And why is that? Well, one is they have gifts and talents. And so when you recruit people, I tell people, I wrote a book one time called Talent is Never Enough.
Yeah.
I've kind of always thought I ought to write another book, a sequel to that book. Talent is never enough, but it would be good to have some. Because if you're a coach with a track and field team, and you got to have a high jumper, you don't need 7 people who can jump 1 foot. You need 1 person who can jump 7 feet. And so so when you're recruiting in your company, obviously the talent that you attract to yourself is very important. But let me say something about depth and attraction and recruiting. It's also true, and the reason we try to develop leaders so much is because we attract who we are, not who we want. That's the law of magnetism, the 21 laws of leadership. Yeah. And Chris, what that means is we are so much in training and developing people because we know the better we develop your people, the better people they attract in their recruiting. And that is so essential for the depth of the team, for the longevity of the team. And it's wonderful. I mean, a quarterback doesn't get paid to run the ball. A quarterback gets paid to put the ball in the hands of the right person, whether it's a pass or it's a handoff. They get paid by knowing who to hand the ball off to. So the key of a successful team is to have people that can catch the ball and can run the ball. And the more that you train them and develop, let me just say one more thing about this, because this is huge. Okay. We talk about people being our most appreciable asset.
Yes.
And in fact, as I'm talking to you, I'll bet every one of you right now, as you're kind of watching me, if I said the people in your company are your most appreciable asset, every one of you would say, check, that's exactly right. Because it's true. I mean, the buildings you build, once you build them, they're built. It's the only thing that has potential of improvement is people. The human resources. Now, what's interesting to me is we'll say the most appreciable asset we have in an organization is people, and then we won't invest in people. We won't give the time in mentoring and training and bringing. I mean, if the most important asset in my company is the people, then I ought to be investing my time, my energy, my efforts, my plans. I ought to be investing in my people to make them even more appreciable.
Yeah.
Which, what does that do? It then gives you, again, that depth that you're talking about in the team.
So building right off of that, a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders, when you begin to think about investing in your people, they say, hey, let's talk about the return on investment that I'm going to get for investing in my people. And while the easiest way to measure that, right, maybe is at that bottom line, the dollar and cents you can count to the penny. But where you can't measure it and where it shows up, really, is in the cubicles, in the creative thought process, in the things where they're innovating and all this kind of stuff. Talk a little bit about the leader perspective in organizations and the return on investment that they get for developing and adding value to their team members.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that because I hear that too.
Yeah.
I hear that. Yeah. Sometimes it makes me mad and sometimes it amuses me because here's what I know. It's incredibly short-sighted. It's like I had a person one time say to me, well, let me tell you why I don't do a lot in training programs and development of people. He said, you find somebody like Chris and you pour into them and you train them and you invest money in them and they get good and then they leave. And they looked at me and said, what? what could be worse than pouring money into somebody on your team and they get better and then they leave you? And I said, well, I can tell you what's worse, not pouring money into them and having them stay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you what's worse than losing somebody that's good, and that's keeping somebody that's bad. And so I think when we begin to say, what's my bottom line? Okay, if you really want to real quickly increase your bottom line, cut expenses. Just cut expenses. Go find a program and cut it out. If you want to increase your bottom line, I mean, you can do that in a moment. By the way, the day you cut expenses, you begin to increase your bottom line. Now, let me ask you a question. Who did you ever know in a company that cut their expenses to the top? How did you become a great company? Well, we just kept cutting expenses. We just have less and less and less, and now there's just me. Well, you can't cut your expenses. You got to increase your investment in the right people in the right places to really build a company. And if people are the appreciable asset, I always say, put your money where your return is. Where is your return? Is your return in your buildings? No. Is your return in your systems? Perhaps. But I know this, it's the people in the systems, it's the people in the culture that make the company. So you better put your money right there.
You know, that made me think about a couple of things in regards to developing people. We say often in our organization as we're working with companies around the world, people will join your team for one reason.
Yes.
But they're not going to stay for that same reason. So what are you continually doing to add value and develop the people? And I think the other thing you see there is that your people are your differentiator. You may have competitors. You may have people that do the same thing. But how you value your people, how you invest in your people, just like you said, creates that culture of engagement. Everything we're talking about here today, the engagement level, it breaks down silos, it increases communication, increases collaboration. Talk just a little bit about the importance of that culture and the process of building that culture, right? Law of the process, 21 laws.
Yeah.
It's just not about an event. Talk about that whole process of building that culture over time. And it really feeds into everything we're talking about today, from becoming a leader to developing leaders to that culture that we build.
No doubt, Chris. Well, I think all of us understand the value of culture. I mean, we all have heard the expression, culture eats vision for lunch. And it does. I mean, vision's very important. But remember, vision is all about where you're going, but culture is all about what you're doing. And I learned a long time ago, what you're doing determines where you're going. I've never seen a picture that was so compelling that you got there without behavior. I've never seen a picture that was so incredible. This is the mountain we're going to take. By the way, we don't have to be mountain climbers. We'll get to it because we see that picture real clearly. No. You get to the top of that mountain because you have a culture of behavior that teaches people how to climb a mountain. So when people look at culture, they have to understand that that's going to determine the success of the organization. And because it deals with people, when you deal with people, the good news is that's where your appreciable asset is. The bad news is it's a process. People don't get better immediately. Leaders develop daily, not in a day. And so that's why I tell people, for example, in training, if you use your programs of training as a program, okay, it's good, but it's not the best way. You ought to have a culture of training. In other words, you ought to say, if you come into this organization, one of the things we are going to do is we're going to invest in you to make you a better person, make you a better family member, make you a better communicator, and to make a better community person. We're going to make you a better member of our team and our company. And we all look at people, and when we start to invest in them and train them, and we just say, well, I think it would be easier to do it myself. And it is easier to do it yourself. And it's quicker to do it yourself. It's just not smart because you're going to be doing it yourself. It's like I talk about delegation. I say, if you delegate tasks, all you'll ever do in your organization is develop followers. Here's the task. Chris goes, does it, brings it back. Okay, here's another task. And after a while, honestly, I don't mean this to be depreciated. It's almost like playing fetch with a dog.
Yeah.
You got the ball and you throw it out. What's the dog? Brings it back. Tail's wagging, you throw it
again.
Can I tell you, That dog will wear you out. You just keep throwing, that dog keeps fetching. And let me tell you, and by the way, every time it comes back with a ball with a little slobber on it.
Yes.
If you want to develop leaders, you have to delegate authority. And to delegate authority means that you have to give them more time. You not only have to tell them what the decision is, you have to tell them why you made the decision. And the moment that I give my commitment to the process of people time to get that return, you see what happens with people is in the beginning of your investment, it's a very slow return, but it compounds. Developing people, that consistency and that time compounds. So what happens is that in the beginning, your return is less than your money. To be honest with you, in the end, your return of money is much greater than what your investment was, because that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Let me just kind of wrap this up, because there is kind of a final thought that I want to give you, because this +1 theme is so good. So I asked myself when I was doing this lesson, I just did it about 4 days ago. I asked myself when I was doing this lesson, okay, what would keep any of us, from not having a +1 year in 2021? What would keep me from choosing and doing the one thing that would improve my life? I mean, what would do? And the only thing I could think of is a fear of failure. The only thing that I can think of that would keep you or me from having a +1 year in 2021 is for us to look at it and say, well, what happens if I can't do that, or if I don't do that, or if I don't accomplish that? And so let me help you with the fear of failure. Again, this is an hour teaching. It's another lesson completely. But you're smart. Since you're so smart, I can do these things to you in 1 minute and 2 minutes because you're just brilliant. I mean, most crowds, this could be for some realty companies, this could be literally a whole day conference. You understand. You're just quicker than others. What am I going to say about that? Okay, here we go. Here's the problem. The problem is we're always separating failure and success. And so we go and say, I want to be successful, and success is over here. And oh my gosh, failure is clear over here. And boy, I want to succeed. Oh yeah, I want to, but boy, I don't want to fail. Don't want to fail. And so we separate. Can I tell you something? Terrible, terrible idea. You should never, ever, ever separate failure and success. They belong together. They do their best work together. I have never met anyone, including Linda and Christy, that told me their success story without it being filled with losses, misses, mess-ups, and failures. And I've never talked to anybody that had a great company that said, you know what, we finally got to a place where we don't have any more problems, issues, difficulties, failures, adversity. It's just, we just finally rose above all that. Now all is good. Let me tell you something. Anybody's talking to you like that, they don't have a company. They're on drugs. You got to understand, you can't separate failure and success. So as you pick your one thing, whatever it is, as you pick it, I want you to know right now, there'll be days that you do your one thing really well, and there are going to be some days when you don't do your one thing very well at all. In fact, some days you'll do one thing, and it wasn't a +1. It kind of seemed like a -1 to you. And I just want you to know it's okay. It's okay. My name's John. I'm your friend. Listen to me. It's okay. It's okay. No one ever climbs each step without slipping, falling, and failing. But it's okay. You see, the value of failure is what we learn from it. And the value of learning is how we improve in it. I'm going to go 2 minutes longer than I'm supposed to go because I just got to share this with you because it just popped in my head and I just don't want you to miss it. I have a coaching company. It's only 10 years old, but it's the largest coaching company in the world. 37,000 coaches now in 170 countries. We got it down. We understand coaching, and we certify coaches. Here's the point. That's not the point. Here's the point. People ask me how we built such a successful coaching company so quickly. It's very simple. We have what we call a cycle of success. A cycle of success. I don't have time to teach it, but I'm going to give it to you because this is worth the whole lesson. Trust me, you just start working this cycle of success, and you're going to be in major, major good woods. At the top of the cycle is test. We're always testing. We're always trying things we've never tried before. COVID-19 was beautiful for this reason, wasn't it? It forced us out of our comfort zone. In fact, everything that you want and don't have, everything that you need and don't have, is because it's out of your comfort zone. If it was in your comfort zone, you'd already have it. And one of the beautiful things about COVID-19, it makes us go out of our comfort zone. Here, what am I doing? I'm doing a virtual conference with you right now. Perhaps I would be live if we didn't have COVID-19. What would the issue is very simple. We've had to adjust. So, okay, test, fail. Because if you do a lot of testing, you'll have a lot of failing because you've never done things before like this. And so you're in virgin territory, so you'll have some misses. So we test, we fail, we learn. Oh my. The value of failure is what did you learn from it? 4, we improve. And finally, number 5, after we improve, we re-enter. And that cycle never stops. It's a cycle. The moment we re-enter, we test some more, we fail some more, we learn, we improve, we re-enter. But what's beautiful about that cycle is every time you go through it, you just go a little higher because you learn from what you've already done. And you just literally build your life, you build your business on it. Okay, that's it. One thing. You can do it. Trust me, I know that. My name's John. I'm your friend. I've discovered every day there are 5 things that I do. And the 5 things that I'm going to share with you right now truly, tangibly, definitely add value to others. Let me give them to you. Every day, I value people. What that means is that I look at every person and I place great value in that person. And people will say to me sometimes, well, John, you speak to the masses and you tell everybody you value them, but you don't really know those people. How can you value someone you don't know? And I said, well, that's true. I don't know the person, but I know the creator of that person. God created you in His image, after His likeness. Let me tell you something. The fact that God created you tells you how much He values you. And if God would value you enough to create you and give you a purpose in life, then by all means, I'm going to value you because of who He is and what He's done for you. Now, valuing people is very important, and here's why. If I value you as a person, then I'll look for ways to add value to you. The opposite's also true. If I don't value you as a person, I won't look for ways to add value to you. You see, how I value you is how I view you. And so, I tell leaders all the time, if you ever stop loving your people, stop leading your people. Why? Because when we don't value the people that we lead, we manipulate them. That's always wrong. Manipulating people is to move people for personal advantage. That's never right. And so valuing people is core. It's center to every person adding value to others. I add value to you because I value you. It's just that simple. So every day, I value you. In fact, that's why I'm here with Pastor Jose today. That's why I'm talking with you at Life Project, because I value you. Number 2, every day. Remember, I do these things every day. 1, every day I value people. 2, every day I think of ways of adding value to you. In other words, before I'm with you, I know that I'm going to be meeting you. I look on my schedule every day and I say, okay, well, I'm going to be with Life Project today. And so how can I add value to you? I think about adding value to you before I'm with you. This is very important. It sets me up to do the best to serve and add value to you. I can think of my grandchildren. When a few years ago I was writing a book called Intentional Living, and I was teaching them how to live intentionally, because that's so huge. The most overrated words in the English language are good intentions. Good intentions have never done anything. Nobody's life has ever been changed through good intentions. Their life is changed through good actions. And intentional living is the bridge that takes us from intentions to action. And so I was having dinner with my grandchildren, and I was talking to them about how are you going to add value? How are you intentionally going to do this the next day when you go to school? And my youngest grandchild, James, who was 9 at the time, said, Papa, tomorrow when I go to school, I'm going to open doors for people all day long. I'm going to be a door opener. And he said, I'm not only going to open up doors, he said, Papa, I tell you what else I'm going to do. I'm going to smile and I'm going to say, have a good day. So the next evening he called me on the phone. He said, Papa, I had a great day. I said, tell me about it, James. He said, I opened doors for 47 people today. 47 people. He opened doors for them. And he said, I not only opened doors for them, I smiled and I said, have a good day. Have a good day. Now, he's 9 years old. He's already understanding how to add value to people. But why did he open that many doors? Why did he smile and say, have a good day? Because he thought ahead of how he was going to add value to people. That is essential. That is key. Don't miss this. This is so important. Every day I value people. Every day I think of ways to add value to people. Thirdly, every day I look for ways to add value to people. Yes, I look for ways. Look for ways to add value to you. Now, this is important. We see things not as they are. We see things as we are. So if I'm a person that looks for ways to add value to people, guess what I'll see? Ways to add value to people. Just as if I'm a person that has no desire to add value to you at all, I won't see ways to add value to you. You see, I see what I'm prepared to see. I see what I am. That's why two people can be with you all day, and one person adds value to you. They're a plus in your life, and the other one's a minus. One is looking for ways to add value to people. And by the way, in the area of values and relationships, let me just say this because it's very essential. Every one of us, we're either a plus in people's lives or we're a minus. We're either adding value to people, or to be honest with you, we're kind of probably taking value away from people. So every day, I value people. Think of ways to add value to people. I look for ways to add value to people. Number 4, I do things that add value to you. You see, I become a person of action. It's wonderful to value people. It's wonderful to think of ways and look for ways to add value to people. But the bottom line is, did I do it? Did I do it? My dad used to tell me the parable of the frogs, where he'd say, John, 5 frogs were on a log. 4 decided to jump off. How many frogs are left? I'd say 1. He'd say, no, 5. But that made no sense at all. I'd say, Dad, you said there were 5 frogs on a log, but 4 decided to jump off. Well, if 4 decided to jump off, there's only 1 left. He said, no, just because you decide to jump doesn't mean that you did. You see, it's the action that makes the change. So every morning, I look at my schedule. I did this morning. I looked at my schedule. I knew I would be in the studio teaching, and I saw that I would be with Pastor Jose and Life Project, and I asked myself a very simple question. How do I add value to you? To you. So in the morning, I look about where I'm going to see and who I'm going to see and when I'm going to see them, and I say, how can I specifically add value to those people? Every evening, I review my day, and I ask, who did I add value to today? And how did I add value to them? I think this is essential. Every day, I value people, think of ways to add value to people, look for ways to add value to people, do things that add value to people. And number 5, every day, I encourage others to add value to people. That's why we're together right now. I have the opportunity to talk to you about values and legacy. But the success of this talk is not what I'm sharing with you. The success of the talk is what you do with what I'm sharing. You taking what I give you and saying, I'm going to do that in my life. I'm going to apply that to my life. You see, all transformation has at its roots application. Our lives aren't changed until we take the action to change those lives. So when we think of Life Project and the heart of Pastor Jose and what he's wanting to accomplish and the good things that you are accomplishing, I congratulate you for those. I just want you to know that values and legacy are essential. And as I look at my list of 29 things that my father taught me, I can tell you without any question, these are values that are now my legacy. I have time. Let me give you, I don't know, maybe another one or two. My father, another lesson that he taught and lived in front of me, was to travel the high road. Now, when we talk about traveling the high road, we're talking about more than the golden rule. You know, the golden rule says, treat others in the way that you want to be treated. That's a good rule. That's a great value. But when you travel the high road, I would say that's not the golden rule. I'd say that's the platinum rule. It's a little higher even than treating others as you want to be treated. The platinum rule basically says, treat others better than you want to be treated. In other words, go the extra mile, turn the extra cheek. This is a major teaching. You see, my father said, take the high road. He also said, not only travel high, but travel far. There's in the Bible, there's the second mile teaching. You know, if somebody asked you to go in Bible times to walk a mile with them, you were obligated as a fellow citizen to do that. But after the mile was over, you weren't obligated to go the second mile. And Jesus said, go the second mile. In other words, do something that's beyond the law or obligation. Give a little extra effort, a little extra care, a little extra time. So my dad, he said, John, walk the second mile, travel far, take the high road, travel high. And the high road is that platinum rule: treat others better than they treat you. I saw my father do that. My father was the president of a college, and he had about 3 board members that were, they just gave him a difficult time. In fact, I was in college, and I could tell that board meetings sometimes became very difficult because these 3 board members were pretty negative and quite jealous. In fact, 2 of them kind of wanted his job, and so it was a kind of a contentious board. It wasn't one that was building. It was kind of one that was pulling apart. And there were times when they just kind of abused my dad. Just instead of taking high road with him, they took low road. And I watched my father turn the other cheek. I watched my father smile. I watched my father live above all the pettiness of those board members. Now, as a college kid, it really made me mad. In fact, I wanted to go in and set him straight. But my father, wise, filled with the Spirit, filled with the fruit of the Spirit, love, peace, joy, long-suffering, he took the high road. My mom was the librarian at the college, and so I would have a key, and I would sneak in late at night when the library, quote, was closed, and a lot of times I would study. One night I was in the library over in the corner studying, and my father came into the library. He didn't know I was there at all, and he kind of went over very close to where I was quietly, kind of hidden, singing. And he began to pray for the board members. He began to pray for those that had taken advantage of him and just had quote, done him wrong. And I listened to him as he prayed and asked God to love them and forgive them and asked God to give him a love for them and asked God to help him to take high road. He finished that prayer and he walked out of the library and he didn't know I was there. In fact, it was several years before I ever told him this story. But that night marked my life because I watched my father treat others better than he was treated. I watched my father turn the other cheek. I watched him live out this value. Today, it's ingrained in me. Not because I'm naturally a good person. It's ingrained in me because I saw it in my father. And let me tell you about the time I went from goals to growth. You see, first of all, I had a mentor who shared with me when I was in my young 20s. He asked me, he said, "John, do you have a personal growth plan?" And I did not. I didn't even know I was supposed to have a personal growth plan. And that day, he shared with me a statement that just literally changed my life. He said, "John, growth is not automatic. You do not automatically grow and get better." He also told me that if you want to go into automatic, getting older is automatic. Getting better is not automatic. So there's a difference between getting older and getting better. And he challenged me to have a personal growth plan. Wow. I'll never forget that. A little later, I listened to Earl Nightingale, who said, and this is where I made the shift from goals to growth, because I started off in my personal growth being very goal-oriented. And then I heard Earl Nightingale say that if you would spend 1 hour a day, every day for 5 years, get the picture, 1 hour a day, every day for 5 years, on the same subject, that after 5 years, you could become an expert on that subject. And I loved leadership. I was just learning leadership. And I thought, okay, I love this challenge. I'm going to take it. I'm going to spend an hour every day on the subject of leadership, every day for 5 years. And by the time I'm 30, I'm going to become an expert on leadership. So off I went. And every day I intentionally spent an hour in leadership. I read leadership books, material. I talked to leaders. I asked questions. I practiced leadership on a daily basis. I just did everything I could in the area of leadership every day. And I was thinking about that 5-year kind of time piece that Earl Nightingale gave me. And so I started literally counting down to 5. It's like 5, 4, 3. I was kind of like Cape Canaveral, getting ready to blast off as a leadership expert. But something happened. About halfway in that process of every day intentionally learning leadership and counting down 5, 4, 3, about halfway in that process of 5 years, something happened within me. I began to be a better leader. I wasn't only learning leadership, I was doing leadership. And what I was learning was enlightening to me, and I was learning more than I could have ever thought about leadership, and I was doing more than I could have ever thought about leadership. And there was an inward change. I was growing. I could tell I was growing. I was different. I was getting better. I was improving. You see, for the first 2.5 years, I kept asking myself the question, how long will it take? How long will it take? How long will it take? Well, how long will it take? Well, Earl Nightingale said it'd take 5 years before I could be an expert in leadership. Well, okay, it's 5, 4, 3. How long will it take? How long will it take? But the moment that I had the personal growth change happen in my life, I quit asking the question, how long will it take? And I started asking the question, how far can I go? How far can I go? Now, if I'm asking the question, how long will it take? I'm on a timeline, a deadline, and I'm goal-oriented. And when I talk to people that are goal-oriented, by the way, I think setting goals is fine. I'm not anti-goals. But when I talk to people that are goal-oriented, when they reach their goal, they kind of look around and say, now, what's next? What's next? But the moment that I change from asking how long will it take, being goal-oriented, to how far can I go, being growth-oriented, all of it changed. I can promise you this, if you're growth-oriented, you'll reach all the goals that you ever had in life. But when you reach your goal, you won't ask yourself what's next because you know what's next, that you're continually learning, that you're continually growing. And what I did is I left the goals, I shifted from goals, which has a timeline, to growth, which has no finish line. I'm 73. I don't have a finish line in my life. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still curious. I'm still asking questions. Why? Because I have a growth mindset, not a goal mindset. You see, when my mentor shared with me that growth is not automatic, he did me a huge favor because one of the things I teach is I use this as a visual. I share with people all the time. I put my hand in the air like I am right now, and I can just say to them that growth is not automatic. That everything worthwhile in your life is uphill. Everything. If you're going to build a great Panda restaurant, it's all uphill. There's no such thing as building a great Panda restaurant without effort, without energy, without time, without commitment. You don't accidentally grow a great Panda restaurant. It doesn't happen. It's never happened. It's not going to happen with you. It's not happening with anybody. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Now, if everything worthwhile is uphill, you can't be automatic going up the hill. You have to be intentional. Nobody automatically climbed a mountain. If you talk to somebody that's successful and said, how did you get on the top of the mountain? You never heard anybody say, oh my. I have no idea how I got up here. I just woke up and here I am on top. No. That person's not a great leader. They're on drugs. Come on. You know better than that. Everything worthwhile is uphill. So when you have a growth mindset, you are intentional to say that every day I'm going to go uphill. And the growth that I'm talking about means that you're going to have to continually make personal changes in your life, because it's impossible to grow without changing. Just as it's impossible to grow automatically, it's impossible to grow without making personal changes in your life. And that's always difficult for us because we like to stay in our comfort zone, and growth is not in your comfort zone. It's not in my comfort zone. It's outside of our comfort zone. In fact, here's what I would say to you. Everything that you need and want, but you don't have, is outside of your comfort zone. Everything. One of the advantages, I think, of COVID-19, it has knocked all of us out of our comfort zone, and it has caused us to what? Create. To think of another way to do business, think another way to serve our people, think of another way to add value to others. It's people say get out of the box. Well, COVID-19 kind of blew up the box, okay? But whenever we make changes, whenever we grow, it's uncomfortable. In fact, do me a favor, just cross your arms like I am right now. Would you please? That's it, just cross your arms. Now, let me tell you what I know about you doing this with me. You've crossed your arms thousands of times, just like me. And guess what? Every time you cross your arms, you cross them the same way. Every time. And if you cross them the other way, it would be very uncomfortable to you because you're not used to it. In fact, let's just practice it for a moment. Take your arms and just cross them the other way. And it's so uncomfortable. I mean, as soon as we do this, we go, oh my gosh, we want to get right back to the way that we're comfortable doing it. Sure we do. I do. You do. Clasp your hands with me for a moment. Now, let me tell you something. You've done this thousands and thousands of times, and every time you do it the same way. Now, there's another way to clasp your hands, but you don't do it that way. I don't do it that way. I always do it the same way. Because if we do it the other way, it'll be uncomfortable because we're not used to doing it. Let's just take our fingers and move them over one, clasp our hands. Oh my, that's very uncomfortable. I mean, we immediately go right back to what we love, what's comfortable, what makes us feel right. Now, I say that because that's exactly the challenge that you and I have. When we are going to grow and become the people we need to be, we're going to have to make some changes. I will. You will. In fact, I have a coaching company, the John Maxwell Team, that's very successful. In a little bit over 10 years, we become the largest coaching company in the world. We have, we have 39,000 coaches in 170 countries in the world. And people ask me all the time, how did you grow your company so quickly? And how have you been so successful? And I tell them it's because we have what I call a cycle of success. And I'm going to give that to you right now. It's very simple. I don't need to teach it very long, but you'll get the principle, and that's what I want you to get, the essence of what this success cycle looks like. And by the way, it's a cycle, okay? It's not a journey. You see, you can take a journey and never visit something again. You can pass it once and never see it again. That's a journey. A cycle, you continually do the same thing over and over again. But it's not that you're in a rut. Get the picture. If you can picture a cycle like this, you continually do the same thing, but every time you do them, you get better at them. And so it spirals upward for you.
All right, so one last question. You just spoke to us leaders to be good or we're going to literally physically kill our people. Yeah. No pressure. Then I want you're an entrepreneur. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen, view our podcast. We got a lot of entrepreneurs in the room today and visually and audio listening and watching us. So you're one. So as an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe one that's just getting started, just getting their feet wet with it, or they're considering starting a coaching business, what would be your advice for them?
Well, my first bit of advice is you're going to doubt yourself and you're going to think at times this is a great idea, and then you're going to think, have I lost my mind? Am I going crazy? Okay, so I'm just going to tell you that you're going to experience those thoughts too, and they may not ever go away. I have been in business for myself since 1997, okay? And there are still days where I'm like, this was an interesting path you chose, Valerie. Yeah, but I've never regretted it. I've been entrepreneurial in spirit since I would go back to 4th grade as the first time I had a little business venture. It's just a part of who I am. So I think what's really important is that you have a clear vision and that there is a purpose at the core of that vision. Your purpose is your why. How are lives better because you are here, because you have this business? And if you understand that, then you can create a compelling vision. The vision is the how. How do you carry out that purpose? How are you making that impact? Your mission should be a simple sentence. One sentence that describes your purpose, but your vision can be as long and vivid, it should be very vivid, as you need it to be so that you can see it and you'll know it when you reach it, but keep yourself reminded of it. That vision should be in front of you every single day, because purpose fuels perseverance. It will be difficult at times. Just expect it to be difficult so you're not surprised when you bump up against those challenges and you're like, oh my gosh, am I in the wrong place? No, it was never gonna be easy. Doesn't mean it's not worth it. But if you can go back to purpose, you'll have the energy to keep persevering if you understand your why. Because Mark, there were times, especially in those first 7 years, and I'm saying 7, it took 7 before I felt like, oh yeah, this is really, really going, right? And I would think over and over again, if I'd stayed in my PR job, I'd be making a lot more money. I'd have a great title by now. But I knew that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so since I knew my purpose, and for me it was calling, like I prayed to know my purpose. And so I knew if I got quiet with that purpose, I was in the right place. I wasn't supposed to turn around and go do something else. And purpose always kept me going because I wanted to know when I get to the end, right, whenever that's gonna be, that I could look back and know that I accomplished what I was put on the planet to do. And so if your business doesn't, for you, ignite a sense of purpose, then go back to the drawing board. What's your purpose? What's the impact you're trying to make? Because it will get hard, but if you know the purpose behind it, you're going to keep going.
And I've taught often, as does John, that purpose piece that you just really captured well, and putting a plan, get clarity around the plan. And I think it's getting people around you just to stay with the P, but it's the accountability. And as entrepreneurs, often, you that's listening to this podcast, so often you feel like you're the only one. You are in it alone. That's why I love our community. That's why I love what we're doing today on this podcast. We're in community, and we're realizing, hey, I'm not alone. When you recognize as an entrepreneur, you may not have anybody on your team, you may not have anybody that understands your purpose and your why, but you still need to bring people around you that will keep you accountable to the plan that is attached to your purpose. And when you can put those three together, I feel like that's the magic.
That is so huge. So connection, I mean, resilient people don't go it alone.
Right.
There is no extra badge you get, no extra award that, oh, I did it all by myself. And it's not even nearly as fun doing it all by yourself anyway. But having some people that have been there and done that, and sometimes you won't know them personally, right? You may start to meet people eventually, but I had some role models that I didn't know, but I studied, right? And then that sense of community that you mentioned is so very important.
Yeah.
Like the Maxwell leadership team wasn't around when I started doing what I'm doing. When I am at the IMC and I see that connection, that whole idea, even as an author, having other author friends, you know, I will never forget, as a matter of fact, I was doing Thrive back in the day when John Maxwell would have the big women's conference, I emceed it. And one of our speakers came, and we were in the car, like on the way to the event, and she's talking about this deadline she had not met. It was Liz Curtis Higgs. You remember Liz?
I remember Liz, yep.
And so she starts talking about procrastinating. Like, this is an author that, like, I was just in awe of because the number of books that she had written, and she was just so funny. And so, in my head, Liz is the kind of person that she was just sitting down every single day. And I know she's got a process, but at this particular time, she was talking about how badly she had procrastinated. And I was just sitting there going, Liz procrastinates?
Blasphemy.
And somehow I felt like, oh, well, I'm a real author too then. If Liz procrastinates, right? I'm not alone. And it was funny because I said something to her like, you procrastinate? And she's looking at me like, who are the writers you know that don't procrastinate, right? And when we're in community with other people, we realize we are not alone. The problems that we're experiencing are not unique. There's not something uniquely wrong with us. We can stop beating ourselves up. We can laugh at ourselves a bit. And then we can talk about, so what do you do when that happens? How do you get over it? Like, we get tools from each other. And that is powerful and keeps us going, because if we realize, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, this is normal. This is a normal problem to have. Then we just kind of figure, oh, it's a normal problem. I need to learn how to deal with it and keep going.
Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results.